Welcome to the SMBAdvertising podcast, where our aim is to help 1 million small and medium-sized businesses to succeed with their advertising. My name is Mike Damjanovic. I'm an ad line specialist and I'm the host of this very special podcast. My aim is really to inspire, to educate and help all of you that are listening to succeed with your advertising. So today we have a very special guest joining us. She is a serial entrepreneur with extensive experience from building and scaling companies internationally. She founded her first company in 2015 and has led global expansion for several companies in the Norwegian startup ecosystem over the last few years. Her passion is in helping Norwegian companies to succeed internationally and sees a huge untapped potential in our very product-oriented country. So I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Stine Norum, the VP of Commercial for CarbonCrusher. Welcome, Stine. Great to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Great to meet you live and in person.
I know, we have spoken a lot in the past, but never met in person. No. So this is such a great opportunity to finally meet up.
Perfect. And I think actually we met back in 2020, middle of the Corona times.
Yeah.
So super nice to have you here.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about something that we're both very passionate about, but also it's incredibly important for all companies and businesses out there. So it's really the link between sales and marketing. Absolutely. I'm going to say it, smarketing.
Love it. I'm all for it.
But more specifically, how can we make these teams or these departments work more aligned, better together? So, Stine, what are some of the benefits of actually making these teams work together?
Well, I mean, there's definitely a lot of benefits, and I think for me personally, I could talk about it for hours, but I'll try to talk about some of the things that we've discussed in the past, which I think are the main pointers. So number one is definitely how to warm up the leads for the sales teams, and it's an incredibly important task of the marketing team. Typically a salesperson just wants a bunch of deals or a bunch of leads that are already there, but then they kind of forget that if the lead is as warm as possible, the time from meeting to close will be a lot shorter.
Exactly, yeah.
So I definitely think that's one of the main pointers. If you have a really good marketing strategy and a process and a flow that works, that you need to send your leads through, you will actually be able to do a massive marketing support for the sales team. So that's incredibly important. And then I also think from a sales perspective, our teams are always out there, speaking with the customers, actually knowing what triggers them to pushing the buy button. So how can you then give the feedback back to the marketing team so that the communication out to the customers will be as good as possible? I think that correlation is really good as well. Sometimes we see marketing teams that are more important or more... They're talking more about, building the brand and maybe not in relates to it doesn't really tap into the sales focus that we really want to see. So I think helping them into guiding them to understanding the customer personas better is really important. And then once you have a big lead pool and you've spoken with customers, they are cold and you're kind of ready to let them go, hand them back over to the marketing team and make sure that they can warm them up, nurture them, have them come back into the flow. So there's several ways of working together, I think. And if they are getting more and more aligned, it typically just leads to better growth.
Yeah, and what I like about what you said now is it's not just a sales job, but it's both marketing and sales. So marketing can improve what they're doing to make things easier for sales, and sales can improve what they're doing to improve things for marketing. And
exactly,
like you say, someone's not ready to buy now. Should we just let go of that lead? No. Sales can give it back to marketing and tell them why they're not ready or what the issue was. So then perhaps marketing can then follow up in a nicer way and more relevant way to that specific company or buyer.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Perfect. So I think that actually leads in really nice to our first main question. And so from your experience now, what would you say are the most common mistakes that companies are making when bridging that gap between marketing and sales?
I would say maybe that they're not aligned on the targets. So every company will, of course, have their main objectives, where they want to be in X amount of years, and that again will lead to team-based objectives. Often, marketing gets one, and then sales gets one, and it doesn't work together.
No.
It's kind of like the example where the marketing team has 400 qualified leads, and then it doesn't make any sense to the sales team. But I think having a main goal that they focus on together is definitely a big solution to the problem. And then you can reverse engineer everything. If you have one common target, you know how many sales meetings you need to have, how many leads you need to have in your pool, and then again, what kind of marketing efforts do you need to do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to be able to reach those targets in a few years.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, we had this, I think it was back in 2020 actually. In the end of 2020, we launched an ebook that people could download.
Yeah.
And of course the cost per download was really, really low, and we had lots and lots of qualified leads. And I as a salesperson thought, oh, okay, great. So I picked up my phone and I started to call. And the first person didn't pick up. I was like, okay, that's fine. Second person, no answer. Third person, they answered. Oh yeah, I've downloaded it, but I haven't read it. It's like, okay, that's fine. And then, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
The next person I called, they read it, they really liked it, but that didn't mean that they wanted to buy my product.
Exactly.
And they, lots of those leads didn't even have a company. They weren't in our right audience. So marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads is something very, very different. So having those goals and aligning those goals. So for example, marketing needs to deliver so many leads.
Yeah.
Then you need to work with sales, because it doesn't help to have 400. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm doing like this, qualified. I'm not sure what that's called. When, for example, the lead is his name's Mike. He lives in a foreign country, and his company is called Microsoft. The likeliness of actually selling to that person is zero. So it's not.
Yeah.
So that's a really, really good point.
Yeah, and also, qualified leads means, like you said, so many different things to different people, and it's about making that correlation. And I think your example is great, because in some situations that ebook might have been a qualified lead, and that would be only based on learning, right?
Yeah.
So you learned that time that you're not ready. It's a lead, but it's not a qualified lead.
Yeah.
We need several steps in this process before I want to even touch it.
Exactly.
And that's it's all about trying different things and not be consistent in, okay, I have the solution, because we don't know. Marketing changes all the time, and we get new ideas to how we can use it. And I think it's just important that you keep on trying and figuring it out, and then working together, as you said, on finding, what does actually a qualified lead mean to us as a team. It's a key here for sure.
Yeah, amazing. So we've looked at then about common mistakes. But then let's have a look at what companies can do to help their marketing and sales teams that collaborate more effectively. Obviously, we've looked at the goals, aligning the goals, but do you have any sort of tools or favorite tools that you could talk about that our listeners would?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I would say my favorite tool is HubSpot. It's almost a bit of a cliche now, but it's just because it works with everything else, which means that if one team has a preference of using a very specific marketing tool, you can still get your KPIs out from using HubSpot. And it basically connects to everything these days, which means it's super easy for the marketing and the sales team to work together, regardless of which tools that they use on their different sides. So to making the collaboration as strong as possible, I always put that as a baseline, and I think it's helped tremendously.
If you are a smaller company, how would you go about then getting started with bridging this gap, if you have, let's say, a limited budget or a small sales or a small marketing team?
Yeah, so from my experience, I've always been in the little startup sphere here in Norway, and it's always been a limited budget, right? So I think the key thing is to work with absolutely everything that you have. Number one is, of course, the team, making sure that you have the right people, but you can't always afford it. So I think it's all about not being too scared about trying new things. We don't know exactly what's going to lead to a successful marketing campaign, but what I typically would recommend doing is just start trying different wordings, different selling points, value propositions that you know the customers can relate to. Maybe even start almost by not spending money on it, but start trying to see what works. And if you get a little bit of a hit, then you can focus on that and start spending your money in that direction. Or you start spending a little bit and you test. It's a typical, A/B testing to see what actually works. That's been very beneficial, I think, for us. And then it's always it's this thing. We are now currently looking for a marketing person for CarbonCrusher, because we have been quite sales orientated from the start, and we're now seeing that we have so much information. We want to get it out there, so we are looking for that one person that can be able to get our message across. So that's two of the main things, I'd say. For us, it's always been about making our own marketing as well, not just be on the phone and on emails. Of course, we do that as well. But how can you build a brand as someone who wants to share your knowledge to the customers, especially using social media as a great tool, Twitter, LinkedIn, being out there, focusing on building yourself as someone who wants to build knowledge on the topic.
Yeah, that's and I think for my own part as well, things like LinkedIn, like you mentioned, Twitter as well, but creating content to show that actually, do you know what, I actually know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm selling because I'm an expert in that field.
Yes.
So creating content and putting it on LinkedIn, you will find as a salesperson, if you call somebody and you manage to get through to them and you manage to pique their interest, then most likely they will go to Google, then they'll go to LinkedIn and they will look you up. And if they say, okay, this guy is actually posting a lot, he's helped this company, and this is also a customer testimonial, and he's really interested in this topic, this is someone that can actually help me with that, your hit rate is actually going to get a lot better in terms of just booking meetings and closing those deals.
Absolutely. And you're even tapping into their network.
Exactly.
So when you get them engaged, maybe they comment, and then you actually have the ball rolling there. It's an old word of mouth kind of thing going on in our newer age. No, I love that example. I think that's it's a really, really good one.
Yeah, I will also just say then in one of my previous jobs, there were salespeople that were calling thousands of times a week.
Yeah,
I mean that's soul crushing, to say the least. And I found that I could actually reduce the amount of cold calls and cold emails I was sending, because when I was sending them, people were going to my LinkedIn, and I saw that they were coming to my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And because I was posting regularly, then they were like, okay, do you know what? Let's give this guy a chance. We'll talk to him, and then when they're in the meeting, that's the most fun for salespeople.
Yeah,
they're in the meeting, then we've got them, and we've got them where we want them.
Absolutely.
And then it's just about closing that deal.
Yeah.
So perfect. Okay, well, Stine, thank you so much for coming in and talking about that. I think it's incredibly evident that sales and marketing working more aligned, bridging that gap, sales helping marketing, marketing helping sales, is going to help to grow any company. It's going to help to increase the sales, and I think it would probably also alleviate that stress and that sort of. I think sometimes there's a sort of a relationship between sales and marketing. It's a bit sort of strenuous. I think it would also help to alleviate that. So just aligning your goals, working together, giving that information back and forth, communicating together. And if you're a salesperson listening now, don't be afraid to start to create content and share content on, for example, LinkedIn and Twitter.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a real
great.
pleasure.
Yes.
Great. Thank you also everyone that has been listening and viewing today. We're going to be linking to Stine's LinkedIn and also to CarbonCrusher.
Perfect.
So if you have any further questions, I'm sure that they can reach and find you there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for following along, and see you next time.